If somebody asked you how many zombie games there are out there in the wild, there's a good chance you'd roll your eyes and reply, well, how many grains of sand are there on a beach? Because of their proliferation, it can be hard for them to retain our interest for any length of time, as there's not a great deal of leeway within the blueprint. Take Dead Island. In my opinion, it's a good game. Not great, but good. Initially what sold it to people was the absolutely incredible and emotive trailer. The one that told a heart-wrenching story in 3 minutes using a combination of forward and reverse time perspectives. I adore this trailer so much and it still brings me to tears whenever I watch it. A lot of other people felt the same way. A zombie game with a dense emotional centre would be something special, except it didn't turn out that way. I recall people complaining of a bait and switch upon release because what they played wasn't the emotional zombie RPG they thought they were being sold, but something far more traditional. I can see where they're coming from, as I was similarly disappointed, but that didn't stop me jumping right in. In this instance, you're a guest in a luxury hotel set on a tropical island. After the initial exposition, where you meet up with a group of survivors, you're left to roam around this paradise at will. The sun is shining brightly and everything is bathed in its warming light. You can see or hear the zombies from quite a distance in the daylight. They're either eating corpses or just shambling about. It makes a refreshing change from the darkness in, say, Resident Evil. Eventually they will spot you and attack in a variety of ways, but unlike a lot of other games, you're actively encouraged to get up close and personal with them. There's a whole set of skills dedicated to punching their rotten faces off in a variety of fun ways. I was a fan of anything electrified, especially axes. The close combat is what makes the game for me. Giving a swift boot to one of the fast-running infected types as it hurtles towards you, combined with a 1-2 follow-up using an electrified machete, always produced a smile. The dismemberment system is also great. Being able to confront a strong, lumbering thug enemy and taking the time to lop off its individual arms, leaving it helpless and angry, lunging at you with only headbutts and gnashing teeth, is a wonderful touch. There are guns if you want them, but for me that just turns the experience into any one of the other Walking Dead simulators. Dead Island and its follow-up Riptide lean into genre tropes quite heavily. There's a lab, there's a plague, and oh no, the infected have become zombies. There's a bad guy who wants to get hold of the formula at all costs and is willing to sacrifice you to do it. You know how things are going to play out before they happen, but that's fine. It means when you're heading out to rescue a group of survivors or retrieve a top secret document, you don't have to worry about changing the flow of the game's narrative. The progression and upgrade system for the weapons is fun. The enemies get progressively harder, but not unbearably so, and the whole game fizzes along quite nicely. Now we fast forward a few years, and the same developer makes a game called Dying Light for a different publisher. It's set in a city where a viral outbreak has transformed the population into zombies, and you're an agent who's been dropped in to rescue a high-ranking blah blah blah, you get the picture. There are almost exactly the same enemy types, bloaters, suiciders and so on. But this time they've injected a level of seriousness into the mix, so the bright colours of the previous game are replaced with the subdued hues of a man on a mission. The voice in his ear, radio contact with the outside world, is always there to bring the main character back down to earth. Having the same developers and premise, you'd think that I'd also be a fan, but the base game does nothing for me. In essence, this is the same game as Dead Island, except they've added a parkour system so you can leap across rooftops as a means to achieve your goals. The whole city is built with an unnatural verticality. Buildings have weird outcrops. There are convenient openings on balconies for you to jump to. The streets feel so enclosed that you want to head upwards to get away from the crowded ground level. This is all well and good. But even if you did master the new parkour system and found yourself freely leaping across rooftops, the end game railroads you into sections that favour precision jumps and fine balance as you walk around the girders of a skyscraper hundreds of metres in the air. All of that vertical freedom is taken away from you in the last moments. Even stranger is the DLC, The Following, was set in the countryside, making the parkour all but useless. Ironically, this pushed it back into Dead Island territory with open spaces and visible enemies. So as a consequence, I enjoyed this add-on a whole lot more, especially as it added a drivable buggy that you could use to mow down hordes of the undead. It's generally assumed that early games in a franchise would be the rough versions, the ones where they lock down their concepts before fully committing to their ultimate vision, as in the Saints Row, Grand Theft Auto or Assassin's Creed series. But here Techland duplicated their work pretty much exactly when they moved publisher. They added a single new mechanic, but they removed all the fun. Interestingly, the developer then reworked Dead Island to use the Dying Light engine and re-released it, so now they are almost literally the same game on a technical level. I don't begrudge developers releasing similar games over and over. It seems to work pretty well for the Ubisofts of the world, but in this case it's as if the creative team went the super serious Zack Snyder route in order to prove how grown up they were, and it makes me wonder whether they were longing to go back to the less serious stories themselves but couldn't because of the licensing. I can't say this is a bad design choice, as a lot of people like the game, but the pivot to being more realistic has turned it into yet another cookie-cutter zombie game. For a company to show such panache and to give us something enjoyably different, to then revert back to the standard tropes of the genre is a shame. If I watch trailers for the upcoming Dying Light 2, and the decade-old, never-to-be-released Dead Island 2, I know which one I'd rather be playing. To me, one looks like the dour tedium of hours of grinding, being forced to make life or death decisions while a ticking clock counts down in the background, while the other seems like a few dozen hours of amusement chopping down zombies in as many creative ways as possible. It's interesting that a personal preference between almost identical products can form on the smallest of details. There might be one thing that catches my attention, a small line of dialogue or a style of playing that I find more fun and it just sticks. I've learned that I prefer Assassin's Creed Rogue over Assassin's Creed 4, Arkham Asylum over Arkham City, and yes, Dead Island over Dying Light. As Shakespeare once said, "To thine own self be true," and at my age that's sage advice, especially when talking about video games.